Well, hello, Science 6. I'm going to give you a short explanation today of seeds, how they work, and why they are so important to plants. So for this presentation, in our shared folder in the post that goes along with this presentation, you will find a copy of the slideshow. And if you would like to be able to take that slideshow and put your own notes onto it, you can make a copy of the read-only Google Slides file and type into it whatever you'd like. Or if you just want to take some notes on a separate piece of paper, you can also do that. Also in the assignment, I've given you a couple links to some other videos and a website that may provide some useful information about the topic of seeds. So what is a seed? A seed is essentially a sleeping baby, except we'd use different terms. For plants that are not actively growing, we use the term embryo, or excuse me, we use the term dormant. And then for a new organism, we'd use the term embryo. So the embryo has all the genetic information that it's going to need in order to grow into a fully formed plant. It's just not in a state initially when it's actively growing. In order for the seed to begin growing into a plant, it needs to be activated. Something needs to happen, specific steps need to happen in order for that seed to kind of recognize that, hey, it's time for me to begin growing. The process of a seed going from its dormant state to an actively growing seed is called germination. Seeds are part of the process of sexual reproduction for plants. And believe it or not, there are actually male and female parts to plants. In fact, some plants may be entirely male or entirely female. An example of this is the holly plant, where if you have a bunch of holly plants, and we're familiar with holly due to their red berries that they produce, typical of some Christmas decorations. Holly plants actually have male and female plants, and whenever you create a flower bed with holly plants, you actually need to mix them in order to get the prettiest berries that retain their color throughout the winter. A lot of plants have both male and female parts on them. Sometimes they're within the same part of the plant. They may be together within a flower, or they may be in different places of the plant. Corn is a plant where the male and female parts are in two different places, and regardless of the exact structure of the male and female parts, there needs to be a process by which the different parts of the genetic code are brought together to form a fully formed embryo, and that process is called pollination. And in the picture of the bee, you can see the bee is covered by little yellow bits of pollen from the plant. Flowers a lot of times are meant to attract pollinators. They're pretty and they have sweet liquids in them that the pollinators feed off of, but really that's just there to catch the attention of the pollinator. The pollen sticks to, in this case, the bee's body, and that then can get distributed to other flowers and other places to mix and spread the genetic code. That process provides for strength in the genetic diversity of the plants. So this process happens a little bit differently between fruiting and non-fruiting plants. In a non-fruiting plant, after the process of pollination occurs, the seeds are going to be produced directly from the location where the flower was on the plant. In fruiting plants, the location of the flower on the plant is eventually going to become some sort of a fruit that actually contains the seed. So not all plants produce their seeds in exactly the same way. There's even some other versions of this that happen, but that's the general process by which plants undergo reproduction, is that they somehow produce the seed and then that seed gets distributed. There are other ways for plants to reproduce, but we'll talk about those in a different presentation. So why seeds? Why do plants that produce seeds kind of like that way of reproducing? Well, first off, seeds can disperse, meaning that they can spread. And our picture of the dandelion seed here is a great example of seeds spreading. Both water and wind are naturally capable of spreading seeds. The seeds can fall into a flowing stream and get carried to a different spot. wind can blow the seeds around, and that spreads them across the land. And we've even talked in class a little bit how sometimes when animals eat fruit, the seeds don't get digested in their digestive system, and then that animal can leave the seeds behind at some other place. This helps plants to survive. If plants are stuck in one location and can't disperse, then that puts the plant at risk to any sort of bad things that might happen in the environment where they live. So the idea of dispersing your seeds over a wide area is part of the plant's strength and part of its survival. So how does the seed germinate? Well, a seed essentially is the embryo and food that will last the embryo until such time that photosynthesis can take over. So inside the seed or the fruit, why are fruits so sweet? Well, they're pretty much nothing but sugar. Don't tell your parents that, but there's lots of other good vitamins and minerals and things that are in fruits, but they also contain a lot of sugar, and that sugar is there to supply energy to the embryo as it begins to grow. The embryo is inside this dormant protective case, and every seed's a little bit different in how this happens, but there needs to be some sort of a trigger, something to tell the seed it's ready to start growing. And that can be something as simple as getting it wet. Sometimes that hard outer coating needs to be scratched, or it needs to wear off, or it needs to break down. But once the particular trigger happens for a seed, there are different chemicals that we call enzymes that kick in and begin all sorts of those living cellular processes going on inside the embryo, and it begins to grow. The first thing that is on a plant's mind once it germinates is, I need to establish roots and I need to find the sun. So we have a little diagram here with an example of a seed growing. And the first thing that a seed is going to try to do is attach itself into the soil and then find the surface so it can get some leaves out, because until the plant gets some of those first leaves out, it can't manufacture energy. So the seed has to survive on the energy that's within its case. And if the seed can't find the sun quickly enough, it runs out of energy and it dies. So that's why seeds have special conditions under which you want to plant them. You don't want to put them right on the surface, because then they'll have trouble rooting and they'll dry out and the process won't work very well. You also don't want to bury seeds too deeply, because then the seed can't germinate and reach the sun before it runs out of energy inside of it. So these are some things to think about on our plant project, of maybe researching, if you haven't already started, researching your particular plant and what it needs in its environment to not only grow, but also for its seeds to germinate most effectively. I'd like to thank my alma mater, Penn State University. They have a tremendous agriculture program there, and they have a great website on seeds and seedling biology at the Penn State University Agricultural Extension. I put a link to this website on the references that go along with this. Thanks for your attention. There's an assignment to go along with this. Take a look at that activity and complete it. You can always come back and watch the video again if you'd like to review the information in this activity.